The rain fell hard on the metal roof of the alien city, the sound echoing like a drumbeat through the narrow streets. In the shadow of tall towers hidden at the end of a broken road stood the shelter. It was not a home, not truly. It was a place where the forgotten were left, children with no families, no names worth speaking, and no hope in their eyes. Inside the shelter, the air was heavy. The smell of damp clothes and stale food lingered. Rows of alien children sat in silence, some with scales, some with fur, some with strange glowing skin. They whispered to each other in low voices, their heads turning when the heavy door creaked. Open. In the darkest corner sat one girl. Her frame was thin, almost fragile. Her skin was pale with a faint silver glow, and her big eyes carried a sadness so deep that no one dared to meet them for long. She had been in the shelter longer than most. Months had passed, yet no one picked her. The caretakers whispered about her when they thought she was not listening. They said she was cursed, unlucky, broken. Every time visitors came to the shelter, they walked past her. Some glanced, some sneered, but none stopped. The other children avoided sitting near her as if her sadness might spread like a sickness. She had stopped hoping long ago. Now she sat silently, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the cracks on the wall. That evening, the door opened again. The sound of boots echoed on the floor. Everyone looked up, expecting another alien family. But it was not an alien this time. It was a human, tall and broad-shouldered. His coat was worn from travel and rain dripped from his hair. His eyes scanned the room slowly. The children straightened. Some forced smiles. Some stretched out their hands, hoping. The caretakers rushed to greet him, speaking quickly, listing the healthier children, the stronger ones. They did not mention the girl in the corner, but the human's gaze drifted past them, past the rows of children, and stopped. He saw her, the girl who never moved, who never spoke. He noticed the way her eyes seemed almost too heavy for her face, filled with sorrow no child should know. He walked forward. The caretakers tried to distract him. This one is clever. This one can work. This one is healthy, they insisted. But the human ignored them. His boots echoed until he stood before the corner. The girl did not raise her head at first. She thought he would leave soon like all the others. But then she heard his voice, soft yet steady. "Why are you sitting here all alone?" he asked. Slowly, she lifted her face. Her eyes met his. For a moment, she froze. Humans were rare in this part of the city. She expected him to flinch like the rest, to turn away. But he didn't. He crouched down so he was at her level. The caretakers stepped forward, nervous. "Not her," one whispered quickly. "She is not wanted. She carries misfortune. You don't want her." The human ignored their words. His eyes stayed on the girl, his voice lowered, kind and sure. "I'll take her home," he said. The room fell silent. The other children gasped. The caretakers blinked in shock. "Her? You cannot be serious," they stammered. But the human nodded once, firm. The girl's lips parted. She could not believe what she had heard. No one had ever spoken those words for her. Her small hands shook. Her voice barely escaped her throat. "Why, me?" she whispered, her voice trembling like broken glass. "Because no one deserves to be left behind," the human answered. For a long moment, the shelter was frozen in silence. The caretakers exchanged worried looks, but the human did not move. His decision was made. He reached out his hand. The girl hesitated. Her heart pounded. Fear and hope clashed inside her. If she took his hand, everything might change. If she refused, she would remain in the shadows forever. Her fingers slowly stretched, trembling until they touched his hand. His grip was warm, steady, and strong. For the first time in her life, she felt safe. The caretakers shook their heads, whispering among themselves. "He doesn't know what he is doing," one said. "The curse will follow him," another warned. But their words faded into the background. The man lifted the girl gently. She was light as if she carried no weight at all. Only sorrow. He wrapped his coat around her small frame, shielding her from the cold. As they walked to the door, the other children stared, their eyes wide, some with envy, some with awe. The girl looked back one last time at the cracked walls, the empty shadows. She would not return. The door opened. The night air rushed in, and the human stepped out, carrying the saddest alien girl in his arms. The rain still fell, but somehow, to her it felt warmer now. No one expected it. Not the caretakers, not the children, not even the girl herself. But in that single moment, the story of her life began to change. The human's house was not grand. It was not rich or filled with treasure. It was small, quiet, and modest, but for the girl, it was like stepping into another world. She had never seen walls painted in soft colors, never felt a wooden floor that was warm instead of cold stone, never smelled the gentle scent of cooked food drifting from a kitchen. Her eyes widened as the man carried her inside, setting her down gently near the table. The girl stood frozen, her bare feet pressed into the floor as if she was afraid it would vanish beneath her. She looked around with wide eyes. There were no cracked walls, no broken beds, no stares of other children filled with fear. Instead, there was light, warmth, and silence. The man walked into the kitchen, returning with a bowl of steaming soup. He placed it in front of her. The scent made her stomach twist. She had eaten scraps for so long that the smell of real food felt almost unreal. "Go ahead," he said softly. She looked at him, uncertain. Her small hands shook as she lifted the spoon. She dipped it once, carefully, and tasted. The warmth spread through, her mouth sliding down into her empty stomach. Her eyes watered, not from pain but from something she had forgotten long ago. Comfort. The man smiled when he saw her eat. He did not rush her, did not push her. He only sat quietly nearby, watching to make sure she was safe. When the bowl was empty, she set it down slowly. Her lips parted as if she wanted to speak, but the words got stuck. Finally, in a whisper, she asked, "Why did you choose me?" The others were stronger, brighter, better. The man leaned forward, resting his arms on the table. His voice was calm, firm, carrying no doubt. "Because no one deserves to be left behind," he repeated. "Not you, not anyone." Her eyes lowered. She wanted to believe him, but years of rejection chained her heart. She shook her head weakly. "They say I'm cursed," she whispered. "That bad things happen to anyone who keeps me." The man's gaze did not falter. He reached out and gently placed his hand over hers. Her first instinct was to pull away, but his hand was steady, strong, and warm. "I don't care what they say," he replied. "You are not a curse. You're a child who deserves love." Her chest tightened. Tears burned her eyes, but she held them back. She had cried too many times alone in the shelter. She did not want to cry again, not in front of him. That night, he showed her the small room he had prepared. There was a bed with clean blankets, a lamp that gave off a soft golden light, and a small shelf with a few books and toys. It was simple, but to her it looked magical. She touched the blanket with trembling fingers. It was soft, warmer than anything she had ever felt. She sat down, slowly, almost afraid it might disappear if she pressed too hard. "Is this mine?" she whispered. "Yes," the man said with a small smile. "This is your room now." Her lips trembled. Her hands gripped the blanket tightly. No one had ever given her anything like this. Not a bed, not a room, not a home. The man left her to rest, but when the lights dimmed, fear returned. The shadows in the corners felt alive. Her chest rose and fell quickly. Her mind echoed with the words of the caretakers. Cursed, broken, unwanted. She curled up, whispering to herself, "He will change his mind. He will leave me like the others." Her small body shook with silent sobs. But then the door opened a little. The man peeked in, his voice gentle. "Are you all right?" She wiped her tears quickly, shaking her head. I don't want you to leave," she admitted in a broken voice. He stepped inside and sat on the edge of the bed. "I'm not leaving," he said firmly. His voice carried a strength that reached her heart. "I will stay as long as you need me." For the first time, she allowed herself to believe. just a little. Her body slowly relaxed. She closed her eyes, whispering softly, "Thank you, Dad." The words slipped out without her thinking. She froze, eyes wide. She had never called anyone that before. The man's eyes softened. His hand brushed her hair gently. He did not correct her, did not laugh. He only said, "Rest now, you are safe." That night the girl slept deeply, the first real sleep she had ever known. No hunger twisting her belly, no cold floor beneath her body, no whispers of curses in the dark, only warmth, and the steady thought that maybe, just maybe, she was no longer alone. Outside the window the rain had stopped. The stars shone faintly above the city. The world was still filled with dangers, still filled with people who would call her cursed. But inside that little house a new story had begun, and though she did not yet know it, the home of warmth would soon become the home of courage, a place where the saddest alien girl would learn to smile again. Days began to pass inside the little home. The girl started to eat more, her cheeks slowly filling with color. She learned how to wash her hands, how to fold her blanket, even how to smile. Though it was still small and shy, the human noticed every change, and he was patient, never rushing her, never raising his voice. But when the sun went down, when the house grew quiet and shadows stretched long across the floor, the ghosts of her past always came. The first time it happened, the man was asleep in the next room. He woke to the sound of a sharp cry. His heart raced as he rushed to her door. He found her tangled in the blanket, her face wet with tears, her body trembling as if she was fighting something invisible. "No, no, please, don't leave me. Don't shut the door. I'll be good. I'll be good," she whimpered in her sleep. The man knelt beside her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. She gasped awake, her silver glowing eyes wide in terror. For a moment she didn't see him. She saw the faces of those who abandoned her, the voices of caretakers calling her cursed, unwanted, unworthy. "It's all right," the man said softly. "You're safe. You're home now." Her chest heaved as she tried to calm herself. Her voice broke when she whispered, I see them every night. They said I was cursed, that I bring only suffering, and then they left me. They left me in the dark." The man's jaw tightened. He had heard whispers in the city about children marked as unlucky, blamed for things they had no control over, and now this little one carried those scars, not on her skin, but deep inside her heart. "You're not cursed," he said firmly. "They were wrong to say that. They abandoned you because they were weak, not because of you." Her lip trembled. She pulled the blanket around herself, curling up as if trying to make her small body vanish. "But what if they're right? What if I ruin your life too?" The man shook his head, his voice calm but strong enough to cut through her fear. "You cannot ruin what you didn't break. You are not a curse. You are a gift. You are here, and that's what matters." Her eyes filled with tears again. She wanted to believe him, but the shadows of her past still clung tightly. She whispered, "Everyone who looked at me saw only bad luck. Why don't you see it?" "Because I don't look with fear," he answered. "I look with truth. And the truth is, you are just a child who deserves love. That's all I see." The girl covered her face with her hands, and for the first time, she cried not because of fear, but because she felt someone fighting for her. She leaned into him, letting him hold her while her body shook. His steady arms made her feel, even for a moment, that the ghosts couldn't touch her. That night she fell asleep again, this time against his shoulder. The man sat awake for a long while, staring at the stars outside the window. He knew her past would not vanish in a day. He knew the pain would return again and again. But he also knew he would be there every time it did. The following days were brighter, yet the girl's shadows never fully left. Sometimes she flinched at sudden noises. Sometimes she froze when strangers stared too long. At times she refused to play with the other children in the street, whispering that they would laugh at her. The man never forced her. Instead, he walked beside her, letting her hold his hand when fear gripped her. When she grew quiet, he would sit with her in silence until she spoke again. When she made mistakes, he smiled gently and said, We'll try again tomorrow. One evening she asked him, "Do you ever regret taking me?" The question cut deep. He looked at her, at the way her hands twisted nervously in her lap, at the way her eyes brimmed with dread. He answered without hesitation, "Never." "Not once," he said. "The only thing I regret is that I didn't find you sooner." Her heart trembled. She lowered her head, hiding her face, but he could see the smallest smile forming. A smile fighting against the weight of all her scars. That night the nightmares returned. She dreamed of a cold cage, of cruel voices, of endless darkness. She woke screaming. But this time, she did not cry alone. The man was there before the echo of her cry had faded, holding her tightly, whispering, "Words of comfort. You are safe. I'm here. I will always be here." The ghosts still haunted her, but slowly, she realized something powerful. She didn't have to fight them alone anymore, and though the past still lingered like a shadow, behind every corner, for the first time in her life, the girl dared to believe in tomorrow. Morning sunlight poured into the little house. The girl woke slowly, her silver eyes blinking against the light. For the first time in many weeks, she felt rested. Her dreams had been softer, not as heavy. Her heart was still fragile, but it was healing. The man was already awake. He stood in the small yard, fixing a tool that had broken. When she stepped outside, he smiled. "Good morning," he said. She nodded shyly, still holding the edge of the doorway like she wasn't sure if she belonged. He waved her closer. "Come here. I have something to show you." Her bare feet touched the cool ground as she walked toward him. He opened a wooden box and pulled out a small drone. It was old, scratched but still working. "This," he said, "is a toy I used long ago. Want to try it?" She tilted her head, unsure. "What does it do?" The man pressed a button. The drone hummed, lifted into the air, and floated above them, spinning clumsily. Her eyes widened as it wobbled, then dipped suddenly before rising again. It looked so silly, so unsteady, that a sound escaped her lips. Before she realized, a laugh, soft, small, almost broken, but a laugh. The man froze, his heart warming at the sound. The girl covered her mouth. Embarrassed, she whispered, "Sorry," as if she had done something wrong. He shook his head quickly. "Don't be sorry. That was the most beautiful sound I've heard in a long time." Her cheeks warmed. She glanced at the drone again as it spun and bumped into a fence post. This time she couldn't hold it back. Her shoulders shook, and another laugh slipped out, louder than before. It was clumsy, awkward, but it was real. For a child who had lived in silence and fear for so long, it was like a spark in the dark. The man guided her hands, showing her how to hold the controller. "Now you try," he said. She pressed a button. The drone shot straight up, nearly vanishing into the sky. "Ah!" she gasped, tilting her head back. She pushed another button and the drone spun wildly before crashing into the ground with a thud. For a moment, silence hung between them. Then she laughed again, covering her mouth with both hands. Her laughter carried through the yard. It was shaky but filled with something new, joy. For the next hour she played with the drone, sending it high, crashing it down, spinning it in strange circles. Each time it stumbled, she giggled. Her laughter echoed against the walls, filling the house with a sound it had never known before. The man watched her, his heart swelling. It was the first time he had seen her forget the weight of her past, even for a moment, but not everyone was pleased. Later that day, as he took her into town for supplies, the neighbors noticed her. Some stared openly, some whispered. One alien muttered, "That cursed child. He brought her here." The girl shrank, behind the man, her hands gripping his coat tightly. Her laughter from earlier vanished, replaced by fear. The whispers grew. "Why would he take her? Doesn't he know the stories? She'll bring him ruin." The man stopped walking. He turned slowly, his eyes meeting the crowd. His voice was calm but sharp. "She is my daughter now," he declared. "Anyone who has a problem with her has a problem with me." The street grew silent. The whispers died. The girl looked up at him, her eyes wide. Her chest tightened. She had expected him to step aside, to let the words of others crush her again. But he didn't. He stood like a wall. Unshaken, she tugged on his sleeve, whispering, "You called me. Your daughter." He looked down at her, his expression softening. "Because that's what you are now." Her heart fluttered. The memory of her laughter returned, mixing with a warmth she had never felt before. For the first time, she began to feel proud instead of ashamed. That night, back in the little home, she sat by the window, hugging her knees. Her eyes reflected the stars. She whispered to herself, "I laughed today. I really laughed." The words felt strange on her tongue, but beautiful. The man stepped into the room, carrying 2 cups of warm tea. He handed her one and sat beside her. They sipped in silence for a while until she said quietly, "When I laughed, I felt lighter, like the curse wasn't real anymore." He nodded. "That's because it isn't real. The only truth is what you choose to believe, and today, you chose joy." Her lips curved into a tiny smile. She leaned her head against his arm, letting the warmth of the tea and his presence calm her. Outside in the shadows of the street, someone else had noticed her laughter. A figure stood quietly, watching from a distance. Their eyes narrowed, recognizing the girl. The one they had abandoned long ago. The sound of her laugh had reached the wrong ears, and soon her past would come knocking. The girl's laughter had been soft, fragile like the first bloom after a long winter. But joy never lasts long when shadows follow. The man knew it, though he tried to protect her from it. It happened one late afternoon. The sun was sinking. The streets of the city were busy with traders, workers, and wanderers. The man held the girl's hand as they walked home with fresh bread. She was humming quietly, still shy, but braver than before. Then the air shifted. The voices of the crowd hushed. 3 tall aliens blocked the path ahead. Their faces were sharp, their clothes dark with the mark of a clan. The man felt the girl's hand go cold in his. Her silver eyes widened in fear. She knew them. She remembered their harsh voices, their cruel eyes. They were the ones who had whispered that she was cursed. They were the ones who had left her in the shelter. Well, one of them sneered, his teeth sharp. "Look at this. The worthless little ghost is still alive." The girl trembled, trying to shrink behind the man. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "It's them. They came back." The man stepped forward, shielding her with his body, his voice calm but strong. "She is under my care now, leave." The aliens laughed cruelly. The tallest one leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "She belongs to us, human. She is our blood, our shame. We cast her out, but she is still ours to take back." The girl shook her head violently, tears filling her eyes. No, please don't let them." The man's hand tightened around hers, his other hand balled into a fist. "You abandoned her," he said sharply. "You left her to rot in that shelter. You have no right to her anymore." "The aliens hissed, their voices rose with threats. "Do you even know what she is? Do you know what follows her? She will destroy you, human. She will curse your home. She is a weight you cannot carry." The crowd around them began to whisper. Some nodded in fear. Others stepped back, not wanting to be involved. The girl buried her face into the man's coat, her voice broken. They'll take me away again." The man knelt quickly, gripping her shoulders, his eyes locked with hers, steady and firm. "Look at me," he said. "I'm not letting anyone take you. Not today, not ever." She stared at him, trembling, searching. His face for any doubt, there was none. He stood and turned back to the 3 aliens, his voice like steel. "She is my daughter now. She is not leaving with you." Gasps spread through the crowd. No one had spoken such words for her before. The girl's heart pounded. His words wrapped around her like a shield, stronger than anything she had ever known. The tallest alien snarled, "You dare claim what is ours?" "Yes," the man answered simply. The alien stepped closer, tension rising. The girl clutched his arm tightly. Her body shook, but when she glanced at the faces in the crowd, she saw something strange. Not everyone looked away. Some were watching. Him with wide eyes, surprised, perhaps even moved. One of the aliens spat on the ground. You will regret this. Human, we will return, and when we do, not even your strength will protect you. The man did not flinch. His voice was calm, but his eyes were fire. Then come back and see what happens. The aliens growled, but they turned away. Their cloaks. Sweeping through the dust, the crowd slowly breathed again. The whispers filled the air. The girl stood frozen. Her heart raced so fast she thought she would fall. Then the man crouched down again, brushing her hair back, his voice gentle now. They're gone, you're safe. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She threw her arms around his neck, clinging as if he were the last solid thing in the world. You stayed, she sobbed. You stayed. He held her close, his hand steady against her back. Always, he whispered. Always. That night, she sat by the fire, her small body wrapped in a blanket. Her eyes were still red from crying, but her heart felt different. For the first time, someone had stood between her and the ones who had hurt her. For the first time, she wasn't alone against them. The man sat beside her, silent but near. She leaned against him, whispering, "Why do you protect me so much?" "I'm nothing." He shook his head slowly. "You are everything to me now. You are my daughter, that is all that matters." Her tears came again, softer this time. She clung to him, her voice shaking. "I don't want to lose you." "You won't," he promised, his eyes fixed on the flames. Not to them, not to anyone. But in the shadows outside, whispers spread. The aliens had not left in defeat. They had left to gather strength. And soon the real test of his promise would come. The night after the encounter was heavy. The man barely slept, keeping watch by the window. He knew the three aliens would not let things end so easily. They would return, stronger and angrier. And when they did, he had to be ready. The girl, however, tossed in her bed. Every sound outside made her flinch. Every shadow reminded her of their voices. In the morning, her eyes were swollen from tears. She whispered, "They'll come back, won't they?" The man crouched beside her, meeting her gaze. "Yes, they might, but we'll face them together." His words were calm, but she could see the storm behind his eyes. Days passed in tense silence. Rumors spread quickly across the city. Some whispered that the human was foolish to defy the clan. Others admired his courage but stayed quiet, afraid of being dragged into his fight. One evening, just as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in fire, the clan returned. Not 3 this time, but 10. They marched down the street, their cloaks dragging across the dust, their voices loud, calling for the cursed girl to be returned. The neighbors shut their doors, peeking through cracks. The street emptied until only the man, the girl, and the approaching aliens remained. The girl's knees trembled. She clutched the man's coat, whispering, "Please don't fight them. They'll hurt you, they'll take me." The man placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "They won't take you, not while I stand." The leader of the clan stepped forward. His eyes burned with hate. "You dare defy us again, human? This is your last chance. Hand her over or suffer the punishment." The man straightened, his voice ringing clear. "She is not yours to claim. You abandoned her. You cursed her name. You left her to die. She is mine now. She is my daughter." Gasps echoed from the windows where hidden neighbors listened. The girl stared up at him, her heart racing. His words cut through her fear like a blade. The aliens growled, "Do you think your words can break blood ties? She carries our mark. She belongs to us." The girl stepped back, her hands shaking. The words stabbed her chest. She almost believed them, until the man's hand gently found hers, holding it tight. "No," he said firmly. "She belongs only to herself, and she chooses to stay with me." The leader snarled, lifting a staff carved with runes. Sparks of energy crackled at the tip. "Then you both will burn." The girl gasped, pulling at the man's arm. "Please run, please, they'll kill you," but he did not move. He stood like stone, his eyes locked on the aliens. "I will not run, not with you behind me." The leader thrust the staff forward. A burst of energy shot through the air. The girl screamed, but the man moved, pushing her behind him. The blast struck the ground near his feet, fire and dust exploding around them. The neighbors gasped. Doors slammed shut. The girl buried her face against his back, sobbing, "I told you I'm cursed, I'll destroy you too." But the man turned his head slightly, his voice steady even in the storm. "No, little one. This fight is not your curse, this fight is theirs." The aliens advanced, their voices rising in anger. The man stepped forward, shielding the girl completely. "You want to hurt her? You'll have to go through me first." The street shook with tension. The girl clutched his coat, trembling, but then something inside her shifted. For so long she had been silent, believing every cruel word, every whisper that she was cursed. But now, as she heard the man's voice rise against them, she felt a spark inside her chest. She stepped out from behind him, her small body shaking, but her voice steady enough to carry. "I am not cursed," she said. Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "You left me. You called me worthless, you abandoned me, but he stayed. He chose me. He calls me daughter." The aliens froze. The crowd of hidden neighbors leaned forward, eyes wide, tears streamed down her cheeks. But she stood tall. "I don't belong to you anymore, I belong here, I belong with him." For a moment silence hung heavy in the air. The man's chest swelled with pride. His hand rested gently on her shoulder, letting her voice carry the truth. The leader's staff crackled with energy again. But now, the crowd began to stir. One neighbor stepped outside, then another. Soon voices rose. "She is right. She is not cursed. She has a home now." The clan looked around, realizing the city was no longer silent. Their threats did not echo as before. They were being watched, challenged. The leader snarled, lowering his staff. His voice was bitter. "This is not over, human. You will regret this." With that, the aliens turned, retreating down the street, their cloaks dragging behind them like shadows fleeing the light. The girl collapsed into the man's arms, her small body shaking. He held her tight, whispering, "You were brave. You spoke the truth. And they cannot take that away." She buried her face against him, her voice breaking. "I was so scared, but I didn't want them to decide who I am anymore." He kissed the top of her head. "You are not cursed. You are my daughter, and you are stronger than you know." That night the city was quiet. The girl sat by the fire, her silver eyes reflecting the flames. For the first time she felt not just safe, but powerful. She had faced the ghosts of her past and spoken against them. But deep down, both she and the man knew this was only the beginning. The clan would not give up, and the final test was yet to come. The night was quiet, but silence did not mean peace. The man sat by the window, watching the dark streets, waiting. He knew the clan would not let go so easily. He had faced them once, twice, but enemies like that never surrendered without a final strike. The girl lay in her bed, clutching the blanket close. Her eyes were half closed, but sleep would not come. She whispered to herself, "They'll come again, I know they will." Then she glanced toward the door, knowing he was awake, watching, protecting. She drew strength from that. Days passed, but the tension never left. The neighbors, once whispering, in doubt, now greeted the man with nods of respect. Some even smiled at the girl, hesitant but curious. The seed of change had been planted. The child once called cursed was now seen as brave, but the clan's shadow returned at last. One evening, the ground trembled under the march of heavy boots. The sky burned with the glow of torches. The aliens had come, not just 10 this time, but many more. Their leader walked at the front, his staff glowing with fierce energy. His voice thundered, "This ends tonight." The man stood at his door, the girl behind him. Her small hand clutched his coat, but this time she did not hide her face. She lifted her chin, her silver eyes glowing in the firelight. The leader sneered, "Human, step aside. You cannot fight us all. Give us the girl, or we will tear down your home." The man's voice rang out steady. "This home is hers. This girl is mine. She is my daughter, and I will never give her to you." The crowd of neighbors gathered at the edges of the street, their faces uncertain. Some whispered in fear, others clenched their fists. For years they had believed the curse, but now they had seen something stronger, the bond between a human and a girl once abandoned. The leader raised his staff, energy, sparking like fire. The girl's heart pounded. She stepped forward before she could stop herself. Her voice shook, but it carried. You can't take me. Not anymore. You left me. You abandoned me. You called me cursed, but I'm not. I'm not yours. I am his daughter. Gasps spread through the neighbors. Her words were clear, strong, breaking the last chain of silence. The man's hand rested on her shoulder, steadying her, but he did not speak. He let her voice be heard. The clan leader roared, swinging his staff. A blast of energy shot toward them. The girl flinched, but the man moved in front, raising a shield generator he had prepared. The energy struck, sparking and crackling, but the shield held. The neighbors cried out, and some began to step forward. One shouted, "Leave them alone." Another added, "She is not cursed. She is one of us now." The clan hesitated, their power slipping as the city began to rise against them. Their strength had always been fear, but fear was breaking. The girl, trembling, stepped closer to the leader. Her voice rang through the night. "I am not afraid of you anymore." The leader snarled, his face twisting in rage, but as he raised his staff again, more voices joined. The neighbors shouted, "Enough! Go back! We will not let you take her." The street filled with sound, and the clan, once powerful, realized they were outnumbered, not in weapons but in will. The leader's eyes narrowed. He spat on the ground. "This is not finished," he hissed. But even he knew the fight was lost. With a signal, the clan retreated, their cloaks vanishing. Into the night, silence followed, broken only by the girl's trembling breath. She looked up at the man, her voice shaking. "They're gone." "For real this time?" He knelt in front of her, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Yes, they won't come back, not after tonight. Because you stood up to them, because we stood together." The neighbors approached slowly. Some bowed their heads, some touched the girl's shoulder gently. One whispered, "Forgive us, child. We were wrong about you." Her heart swelled. She never thought she would hear those words. She pressed her face into the man's chest, whispering, "I'm not cursed." "No," he said firmly, wrapping his arms around her. "You are blessed, and you are mine." The days after were brighter. The city began to treat her differently. Children asked her to play, neighbors offered small gifts. The girl smiled more often, laughed more freely. The ghosts of her past still lingered, but they no longer ruled her. One evening, as the sun dipped, low she sat beside the man on the steps of their home. Her voice was quiet but full of meaning. "When you found me, I thought I was nothing, but now I feel like I can be someone." The man smiled, resting his arm around her. "You already are someone. You are my daughter." Her silver eyes shimmered. She leaned against him, whispering a word that carried more weight than any curse, more strength than any fear. "Dad." No one expected it. Not the shelter, not the clan, not even the girl herself. But the saddest alien child had found her place, her voice and her family, and together they walked into an unthinkable future. Not ruled by curses, but by love.